Welcome to The Value and Why. We are not experts, we are simply average guys like anyone else out listening. What we hope is that by sharing our experiences, it will help promote thought in others to find answers in their own lives.
Alex, I think we discusses. Yeah. Take two. All right, Alex, so I think we were discussing we'll do a video on social dynamics.
Yeah.
So with social dynamics hits a very big range. And the primary range that we are dealing with is going to be the interaction of male and female, right?
So, just a brief overview, back up a little bit. Why are we talking about this? All right, so part of what we want through these videos that we're sharing is for people to identify our journey a little bit. Our hopes in doing this is to help other people understand the thought processes that we have behind what we're doing, and to understand basically our point of view, what got us to where we're at. All right, and social dynamics, I think for both of us, was a huge part of that. For me, it was kind of the start of my journey. All right. I had just gone through a breakup with
An ex.
with an ex, and I looked at it and I was like, everyone's first reaction.
Well, hold on. Let's back up. So when you broke up with that ex, the biggest thing that you realized was when you stood back from the relationship, you went, hey, it wasn't all her. I know I had something to do with it. And you started asking, what was it? Because you were going, apparently I don't understand something.
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly it. I was going to say everyone's first reaction is obviously it's their fault.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it, there are two parts to every story, and there are three sides to a coin.
Yep. Which one's the intelligent side, Alex?
The outside. Right.
Most people don't realize that if you stand a coin up, that's the side as well.
Exactly. You have the top, the bottom, but then you have the circle. All right. And what I realized is that I was one side to the coin, but what I really wanted to do was become the circle. Because looking at the situation, I said, obviously there were some things that I must have done that drove this person away. And really, that was the first start of me coming out of that breakup and out of that relationship, and realizing that, hey, everything happens for a purpose, everything's in synchronicity, and knowing that there was a purpose for that breakup, I had to say, I'm not going to let this all be for nothing. I'm going to learn from this, I'm going to grow from this, and I'm going to make myself better so that next time I get into this, I have a higher understanding of how things work, and hopefully that won't happen again. And so that's what really drove me to look into social dynamics. And Tim, being the guy that he is, was like, well, I'm going to dive right into it, and I'm going to tell you what I know, because he already had a pretty good understanding of social dynamics, but it really kind of brought both of us on a journey together to look into social dynamics.
Yeah, and let me put this out here. When I first started looking at social dynamics, you as well, that the little bit we started going down, we started resisting, because one of the things with it was we went, whoa, this seems like information that I could manipulate a person. And we really had a rough time at first allowing ourselves to go there. But we realized that the purposes of why we were going was not for manipulation, it was for understanding. And so I think when you're searching through topics and trying to understand things, you also need to understand your mindset behind them. And so with that mindset, there were things in our lives that pushed us going, wait a second, no, there's still things I don't understand. And it eventually pushed us to really look down and try to understand the social dynamic side. Now, let me go ahead and get you to talk about you got a pretty good understanding of social dynamics through a guy named Max.
Yes. So there's another channel out there, RSD Max. All right. So RSD, Real Social Dynamics. So Tim and I both started looking into this guy, and by all means, if you guys want to go out there and do your own research, by all means, he's a good place to start.
Yep.
But what we very quickly identified from his videos is that a lot of the things that he was doing was kind of how to pick somebody up,
Yeah.
and I was not interested in becoming a pickup artist, and that was where some of the war began for me and Tim in looking at this subject. Is that we're like, wait a minute, is it really that easy to influence somebody, and is it really that easy to pick somebody up, which was not what we were after. But the interesting thing is that as we got some of this information and we understood one of the main premises of knowing how social dynamics works is leaving somebody better than you found them.
Yes.
And that part very much intrigued us, because one book that we've discussed before, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, talks about the power of suggestion. And looking back on it now, I now realize that that's all social dynamics is it's the power of suggestion. And you can use that either in a positive way or a negative way, and you have to actively choose how you're going to use that. And so me and Tim, looking at it from that perspective, chose, hey, if and when we use some of these tactics, we're going to do it in a way to uplift somebody, in a way to leave them better than the way we found them, not to manipulate them to our wants and desires, if that makes sense. So anyhow, Max goes through several different topics as to how to interact with the opposite sex. And that's really where it all began for us, because I don't know about you, but I thought a lot of it was really silly, and I was like, there's no way that that would work. There's no way that it's this easy. If it was, everybody would know about it, because it all just seems so simple. But the interesting thing is that as we began to realize how simple it was, it just made us drive deeper and deeper into it, because we realized, hey, there's something here. Why isn't this stuff taught in schools? Why don't people understand how other people work? And I think that's really the beginning of the journey for us.
Yeah. Jump into my side. So I was looking at Max as well, and like some of the things that Alex was talking about, that I sort of stepped back because, yeah, it seemed like a pickup artist. But because of some situations that I was trying to understand, that I needed a good grasp on social dynamics. And so I ended up coming across a guy named Corey Wayne, which if you want to look up his stuff, he's on YouTube. He's also written some books. And he has a book called The 3% Man. It's a very good book to read. So I got a really good understanding from Corey Wayne, and Corey Wayne's stuff, he teaches typically the attraction level starts at 50%, and you're looking for someone that's already in that 50% range to bring up, where Max is actually showing very advanced tactics where you can take somebody that's much lower and bring them up. So there's a big range of different topics depending on what you're trying to achieve with social dynamics. So I think a good place to really start with this study of social dynamics, this is going to be a multi-video thing where we're going to hit different series with different topics on social dynamics. You know, I think a good place to start with social dynamics is just talking about the differences between male and female, because how they operate, that males typically are logical and females are emotional. And so the very first basis is understanding the two differences, because a lot of times we like to, as humans, project that everybody's like us. So when we're dealing with female, that we're trying to be logical, and a lot of times as males in a relationship is like, she just doesn't understand. And it's like we're using our logic and going, hey, she should be like this. And of course the female is not responding at all with logic. She comes home, she'll gripe about work and tell you this great story of how horrible her day was. Us logical men are going, okay, well, I just heard the story, I don't want to hear it tomorrow, so I'll give her the solution so I don't have to hear it. So then I give the female the solution, and she seems to be a little bit annoyed, but we'll see what happens. She comes back tomorrow, says the same thing. Well, my logical brain goes, hey, did you try anything I told you yesterday? And she's like, no. And so then you're like, okay, then if you're not going to do what I asked or told you how to fix the problem, then don't tell me about it. And that becomes like part of the very first breakdown of communication between a male and a female, is that the male is sitting there with logic going, well, you just need to fix your problem. Well, the female doesn't necessarily want to fix her problem, because she's typically dealing with the emotions, and the female is typically looking at the male as a rock of fix my emotions. So what she's actually doing is coming in and saying, hey, I had a bad day. She doesn't want you to fix that part of her day. She wants you to fix right now in the moment. She is actually asking for you to fix her feelings right now. So when the female presents that that's what she wants, that's what you do. And so a lot of times with the easy way to understand the male and female role is that the male is responsible for her feelings, and the reason why the female would pick that male is because her attraction is built off of emotion, where ours is logical. Oh, she's hot, she has this, she has that, and we're logical, but she picked because you made her feel different than any of the other men. So anytime that she feels a certain way, she knows she can come to you and feel a different way. And when you quit being able to change her and make her feel better around you, she starts associating you like all the rest, and you typically start getting those things that the female starts saying, well, I feel this way about you. Well, you hear a feeling word, it's a cue. I'm sure you got a lot to put into that.
Well, that was a pretty big opening, but we'll put it this way, all right? So if males are logical, females are emotional. The interesting thing is that, you know, I talk about social dynamics not just with males and females and not just with romantic relationships. Social dynamics as a whole is a game, all right? And I present it as such because I feel it's the easiest way to present it. It's a game. The issue is that females do not...
Start back where you started right before.
So, with us understanding that social dynamics is a game, all right? The thing is that females don't typically understand that there's a game there, but naturally they're very good at playing it. Males are not good at playing it, and it's up to their logical side to figure out that there is a game and how to play it, all right? So...
because the game is actually an emotional game.
Exactly. And since men are not driven emotionally, they have to figure out how to approach the emotions from their logical side, all right? So if a man doesn't realize that there's a game and he's just going to be himself, which you should be, but you should understand how to apply yourself to the other person. If he just sits there and he's just spewing logic, that's not very attractive, all right? For many different reasons. A lot of it has to actually do with if you are too far on the logic side as a man trying to attract a female, you're often going to come across as like a father figure or a brother figure or something like that, because those are typically those figures that are going to try and solve their problems. They don't want their problems solved. They want their emotions solved, all right? So now with that in mind, you as a man have to figure out how to read the emotions and how to navigate the emotions, how to influence the emotions in order to bring the female up, all right? And that's why it can be very difficult to play at first. Now, the reason why women are actually very good at this naturally is because women from a young age are actually programmed to respond to people's facial expressions much easier than boys do, all right? So a little girl is going to be able to identify facial expressions at a much earlier age than boys do, all right? And because of that, their brain is actually programmed and wired to react to facial expressions exponentially more than males do, all right? So basically, we'll put it this way. If you're a little girl and you recognize that when you do something, mommy smiles, then you're going to do more of that thing because you're recognizing, hey, you're associating smiling means she's happy. So if what I did makes her smile and makes her happy, I'm going to do more of what I did, all right? Whereas men, because we're logical, we're not feeling, we do not recognize that yet, all right? So here's what's going to happen. Since women can identify facial expressions and their system of gratification develops at a very young age from facial expressions, that's more on the emotional side, which means that as I'm talking to a female, if I just have a straight face like this the whole time, then she's going to think that emotionally I'm not all that impressed with her.
Yep.
And she's not going to like that, all right? So it's actually an interesting little dynamic because it's males learning how to be emotional and how to apply their logic in such a way that it comes across as emotional, and by doing that, the females are able to understand the male logic a lot more, and it creates this almost synchronicity between the two of them, and that's why I say it's a game. It's almost like a dance.
It's a game, but the other side is the female has been playing it her whole life, especially if she has a father in her life. Because when she has the father in her life, that she knows how to go up to the father and get whatever she wants, because those males tend to have a softer little spot for the female. Not every situation.
No, not at all. There are definitely outliers.
But the thing is that the female knows that if she wants to get something from daddy, that she can strike daddy's emotion. So she gets used to dealing with that male and his emotions, and that is where she's learning the game of understanding the male emotion. And so when she goes out into the real world with the males that she may want to date or have other types of relationships, that the interesting part is she's used to, hey, daddy knows how to make her feel better. If she's having a down day, what daddy going to do? Daddy may go, hey, sweetie, let's go get some ice cream. Or, just change the whole thing. If she comes home from school and she's all bummed out, well, daddy typically is there to protect the daughter, and he automatically is actually going to be protecting those emotions. And so that's where the game's developed. And us guys, typically when we get daughters, end up playing that game with our daughter properly, because we're not looking at it as that. We're not looking at it as a sexual relationship.
No, we're not. We're not looking at it as a logical problem, because we're looking at it. Okay, my daughter's sad. We understand. It's actually kind of funny, because we understand that a child isn't going to think logically as much. So when you're dealing with a younger child, you are actually going to typically communicate more on the emotional level, which is why fathers generally do better in that area, because they understand that. But for whatever reason, we think somewhere through life that everyone's logic evens out, and that's the only way to communicate, when that's not the case. Emotions are a huge part of communication. They're almost, I would say, more important than logic.
And what's interesting through some of the different books I've read, not just in the 3% Man, but when it comes to the female, that if she has to move to more of a logical base, they're usually in a little more of annoyance, and they're a little more annoyed when they have to be that. So when a male is trying to be a strong alpha male, that if he can do the role of the logic but keep the female from being in the logic but primarily being in the emotional side, that it puts the female at more rest. And that's also where the trust is built between the two of them. Is when the female can trust that the male can take care of her emotions, she's willing to let him do the logic side. And so, for instance, logic side, a lot of times when you have male and female together, who's going to take care of the bank statement? A lot of times the female is okay with the guy doing it till he messes up. Well, all of a sudden when he messes up, he messed with her emotions, and now she wants to take it over, where it's probably more of a logical task, and she's probably going to gripe the whole time she's doing it, and you'll be like, well, I'll take it over, and she's like, no. And the reason why she's saying no is she's protecting her emotions, because she's looking at it, no, you messed up because you hurt my emotions.
So now I have to do this so that my emotions won't be hurt,
and
right?
So and so there's the irritation, because now she's doing a logical task that she would be more happy for you to do, but because it ended up having a emotional negative, now all of a sudden she doesn't trust you. And so what's interesting is with a female, trust is built upon the emotional aspect, not the logical aspect. Where me and Alex, will we trust each other? Yeah, we'll say words, and logically, as long as he holds his word, I hold my word, our trust is good. And we assume when we deal with female, it's the same way, but it's actually not. And that brings me to another interesting point with females, is that a lot of times those guys like to say females are liars. Well, the thing is, females speak from a place of emotion, and so at the moment they may say, I feel like doing blah 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 tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes, they go, no, I don't feel like it. And so the thing is, when they said that they would do it, they were telling the truth, because they were telling you how they felt at the moment. And then when it came time to do it, they still weren't lying, because they just told you how they feel right now. And so, but us guys will be like, we're trying to hold them to their word. Okay.
Well, it's a little different. So we actually, in social dynamics, call this a temporary truth. All right. Women oftentimes, now there are some times where obviously they will lie, just like men will lie. It's no different. But a lot of the times I'll get this from people where they'll be like, well, such and such just, they stood me up, or whatever the case may be. We may have planned on going to a movie together, or whatever it is. That's a temporary truth, all right? Because in the moment when you were interacting with that female, she felt like doing that. She felt like going to the movies with you the next day. She felt like going to have dinner with you. She felt like coming and playing video games with you. Whatever it was, she felt like that would be fun. Like that would be a good time. Now, that one feeling can change in an instant. Imagine how many interactions, let's say you had her agree to that at 7 o'clock the day prior, that the next day you were going to meet up at 5 p.m. and do something together. Okay, now you just brought up almost 24 hours of emotional encounters that are going to change how she feels about that. She could have had a really hard day at work. She could have had her parents call her with some bad news. She could have had a fight with one of her siblings or one of her coworkers or one of her friends, whatever the case may be. Because she's working off of emotions, her emotional level is going to determine whether she wants to go and do said thing. And since her emotional level is going to determine that, that's where the mastery of the emotions comes in on the male side. Because if instead of me going, hey, why didn't you show up? I'm waiting for you. If I can find a way to elicit the same feeling that she had the night prior, you're more likely to get that engagement out of it. Because now she's back in the mindset of, oh yeah, that does sound like fun. I do want to do that. But the second you try to hold them to their word, all of a sudden you're way over here in the logic side of the spectrum, and she might have had a really crappy day, and now she's going, this guy's being a little child because he expects...
And it's causing an emotional trigger.
Exactly. Yeah. And now all of a sudden you break it down and it doesn't work.
So I think we have defined pretty good the difference between the emotional side and the logical side. Mm-hmm. And I think this is probably a good place to end the video for today. Now, one of the things I want to ask the viewers to do is give me a situation that maybe you didn't understand why it unfolded the way it did, and put it in the comment section. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up with different scenarios that are common. Mm-hmm. And we're going to make another video on the social dynamics of us breaking down, here's how a situation went through, here is a different way of looking at it and breaking it down. Mm-hmm. And so if you have something, you can put it in the comment below, and then we'll get it in a future video.
Absolutely. The whole thing of social dynamics is understanding how males work, understanding how females work, so that not only can you communicate with each other better, but you can use this in your day-to-day life to improve other people's lives, and by doing that, it's going to improve your life. You can use this in the workspace, you can use this with your family, you can use this with your friends or with your romantic relationships, but as long as you have the right mindset behind it, it's a very, very valuable tool to help you grow in your relationships across the board. And I think that you guys are going to get a lot of good stuff out of this. I hope that you go out and research it on your own, because as you know, we are all about asking the question why. So if this doesn't resonate with you yet, maybe go out, look for some of your own information, come to your own conclusion, figure out if what we're saying is good to you or not. Then come back, give us a like, give us a look.
One of the books I really enjoy was Superior Man. Mm-hmm. If you go look up Max that Alex was talking about, he has a bunch of good books he lists out there to read. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Corey Wayne. Look, he has a really good YouTube channel. He goes through and gets letters every week and reads guys' situations, and he breaks them down. Mm-hmm. And then he has his book. He's a really good resource, and there's many more out there.
Mm-hmm. So real quick, before we end it, I want to end on this. I know Tim and I are guys, so it may seem like throughout this video there are going to be portions where we might be a little biased, all right? That's just coming from our experiences, which is all we're doing on this channel, is sharing our experiences. But if you're a female out there and you're watching, I highly encourage you to continue watching, because what I've noticed is the more that I understand about the opposite sex, the more that I understand about myself. Yeah. And so it can be a very valuable journey, even if we're talking about how guys can interact with women. The more you figure out about our side of the interaction, the more you're going to figure out
yours.
The more you're going to figure out about your side of the interaction, and that's a very valuable tool to have. So with that being said, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
All right. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and then the little bell to get notified.
Also, don't forget to like and share our content so that we can get this out there. If you guys have any questions that you want answered, or you have any suggestions for a video topic, please feel free to put that in the comments below.